Chapter 5, Littagale, The Adventure Begins. That dripping, wherever it was coming from, was going to drive her batty. Or else the bats hanging from the ceiling were going to drive her batty. Littagale giggled at the joke there, but she continued her walk back into Tor's lair. It had all the ingredients of your standard mountain cave. Rock, cold, dirt, wet, darkness. At least, the first part of the lair was like that. Once you got past the first few twists and turns, it opened into a wide cavern long enough to accommodate the dragon. A hollow opening in the peak of the mountain must have been a volcano eons ago, but now Tor used it as his exit and entry point into his cavernous lair. Only humans could fit through the crevice opening in the side of the mountain, and few were brave enough to trespass. She'd used the crevice entrance to gather firewood from the mountain forest outside. Dampness chilled the large cavern, but Tor assured her a good fire in her cave rooms would, and I quote him here, cheer up the place. She had to smile as she walked back into the cavern and saw the dragon waiting for her return. She liked him already. Make no mistake, she'd been terrified when she met him in the meadow. She was afraid of him even now. It was a healthy level of respect to have for such a creature. But I like him, she thought, and since Mom trusts him, I will too. Tor forced a smile, exposing his pointed fangs.
Oh good, you're back.
His sarcastic tone rumbled around the cavern. Littagale gulped, but tried not to offend her host. She'd gotten the impression he wasn't thrilled about the arrangement, but apparently Mattea had talked him into it. Where should I put this? She asked with her arms full of firewood. Tor lifted a taloned paw to point over at an adjoining cave's opening in the far side of the cavern.
That leads to what I call the Princess Cave. If you put the wood in that cave opening, I can start a fire from here. That seemed to work for my other guests.
Other guests, thought Littagale with a chuckle. I can't believe other princesses have kept this a secret for centuries. This is so wonderful. I can finally have my own adventure. If a prince tries to rescue me and I don't like him, Tor can run him off. My stars, that's better than any solution I could have dreamed. However, she also knew the other part of the deal she'd made with her mother. If a suitor turned up whom Littagale thought she could marry, she'd agree to be rescued and end her kidnapped adventure. But I don't have to think about that yet, she told herself. Littagale skipped with her wood over to the cave opening on the far side of Tor. She could feel the heat radiating off his dark green scaled body, but she didn't exactly want to spend the night curled up next to a surly dragon.
There is fine,
said Tor. Littagale deposited her armload on the dirty ground of the smaller cave and brushed her hands together. She looked at him. Tor raised a scaly eyebrow.
You might want to stand back.
Oh, yes. Littagale hurried out of the cave and jogged back a ways into the main cavern. Tor twisted his gigantic bulk, the scales of his belly dragging against the stone floor. Finally, he faced the cave opening. He opened his mouth only a fraction, inhaled, and pursed his lips. Like a heating furnace, the neck skin under his scales glowed red, and a moment later he puffed out a streak of fire. Littagale guessed it was only 1/10 of his full strength, but it was quite enough to light her small pile of wood. The dragon turned back to look at her.
Will there be anything else you require this evening? I'm going to take a nap before my hunt tonight.
Hunt? Littagale asked excitedly, thinking of her ride to the lair. May I join you? I'd love to go flying again. The dragon sighed.
Oh, I suppose. Now let me rest.
Littagale smiled politely. Okay, thank you. He harumphed and turned away to curl up like a cat. The giant fins on his tail twitched as the tail brushed the ground in front of her. Soon his massive body was settled, and his chest rose and fell with breath as he slept. Not much of a talker, she thought. Littagale walked back to the cave with the fire and stretched her hands to the warm light. It blazed like a healthy campfire, and already the stone around it was drying. Littagale hadn't yet explored the Princess Cave, but she saw in the firelight that other caves connected on either side of this entrance. I wonder what's in here, she thought. Entering the left cave first, Littagale was immediately surprised to find a fully stocked bedroom. The furniture consisted of a golden bed with fluffy blankets, a nightstand, and a stunning dresser set. Rich carpets covered the floor. The walls were still made of stone, but the cave room otherwise looked like a palace bedroom. The fire from the adjoining room was already warming the room, and Littagale looked up and saw carved vents in the ceiling. A hole in the ceiling ran all the way to the mountaintop high above, letting in a shaft of moonlight. She walked across the bedroom to a tapestry. This she pulled back to find a smaller room with bright white tile molded into the floor and walls. It was a bathroom, complete with a washing basin and a toilet carved like a seat against one wall. Another tapestry hung from the far wall, so Littagale crossed the bathroom and pulled aside this tapestry. This revealed a multi-shelved closet. "Oh," she said happily. When Mattea had journeyed here to talk to Tor about their plan, she must have brought some of Littagale's things in anticipation that Tor would agree to take her in. Several shelves held Littagale's favorite casual Marshwood blue dresses. Also stacked were warm pajamas, socks, and a good month's worth of underclothes. A few pair of boots stood on the floor. "This'll make things more comfortable," she thought. Turning, Littagale walked back to explore the Princess Cave rooms on the other side of the fire. The first room was larger than the others and obviously a kitchen. Another skylight shone moonlight down onto a marble counter with a carved water basin, a grill top, and a place for a fire underneath. The wall behind this counter held hanging shelves, and the shelves were decorated with brightly colored plates, bowls, cups, and racks of utensils. Along the opposite wall stood a lovely oak table with chairs along its length. "Too bad Mom didn't learn to cook while she was here," thought Littagale with a smirk. An arched opening led into a room on the far side of the kitchen. Crossing this threshold, Littagale gasped in amazement. "It's a spa," she thought. A wider room than any of the others, this one was tiled, floor to ceiling, in beautiful white stone. To one side of the entrance, Littagale saw storage shelves with rows and rows of towels. All around the room were at least a dozen lounge chairs to choose from. The main attraction of the room lay in the very center, where a large pool was carved into the floor. The water was steaming hot, apparently from a geothermal pool beneath. A large skylight was crafted into the ceiling, and moonlight shone into the bubbling water, revealing seats carved into the shimmering rock sides. Walking to the pool, Littagale dipped her toe into the warm water. She laughed quietly. "Not a bad way to rough it. Thanks, Mom."